85% of my patients would respond to the treatments I had. It was therapy. It was a therapy that we formed. It was not medication. But that 20% didn't respond. What do we do for them? So that's when I started my journey into different fields, and regenerative medicine was young at that age. And I stuck with it. I said, okay, this is my answer. And I learned everything there was about stem cell treatment, PRP treatment, and regenerative medicine to be able to invent the treatment that I did. And I got 3 patents on it. So learning all that, the patients would come in, and then once their headache was gone, they said, "By the way, doctor, I heard about vampire facial. I heard about PRP, this." So they knew cosmetic applications more than orthopedic or neurologic applications. So they would ask for that. And then afterward, I saw that, their headache is gone. They're happy because of that. Then they look better. They're happier because of that. They got their life back, and they kept asking me for it. So that was sort of my journey. That was sort of my introduction to it.
Hi, I'm Chris Stock, owner and CEO at salesMD, and welcome to our new podcast, the Aesthetic Business Success Show. The podcast built for MedSpa and aesthetic practice owners who want to grow and market and scale with confidence. Each episode will bring you proven strategies, practical insights, and insider conversations with top doctors, marketers, and industry leaders. Whether you're looking to attract new patients, more patients, boost your revenue, or streamline your operations, this podcast will become your go-to resource for building a thriving, profitable practice. Our guest and myself are here to turn your insight and knowledge into impact. So let's get the conversation started with today's incredible guest. Today, I'm grateful to be joined by my great friend and true leader in our industry, Dr. Payman Sadeghi, MD. Let me tell you about Dr. Sadeghi before we meet him. Dr. Sadeghi isn't just changing lives. He's rewriting the playbook on what wellness and healing really mean. From being the final stop for migraine sufferers around the world to pioneering a new way of thinking about beauty, aging, and inner beauty. Dr. Sadeghi doesn't just treat symptoms. He transforms lives. He's a board-certified neurologist, internationally recognized headache specialist, and founder of Defi-Age MedSpa. He's here to talk to you about what success looks like in the aesthetics industry and share how he's evolved from insurance-based medicine to creating a very successful MedSpa in Houston. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sadeghi. It's great to share the conversation with you today.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's great, and it's an honor to be on your show, especially at the start of it. So a lot of success to you.
Thank you. Yes, you are our first guest. So you set the bar. So
no pressure there.
No pressure at all. You're used to pressure. You're used to it.
There you go.
So we know the aesthetic industry, the wellness industry is in constant state of evolution and change. What are the most important macro changes you are witnessing that our audience needs to be aware of, in your opinion?
Sure. Before telling you what macro changes are important, I got to tell you this, that a lot of things become available on daily basis almost, maybe exaggerating, but very often. We gotta have the knowledge or the vision to sort out things that are not gonna stick and are just distractors, such machines and such medication and such proteins and peptides and this and that. And a lot of them turn out to be a waste of time and money. So gotta be careful about that, very careful. They get you excited, they get your juices running, and then it turns out to be not a good investment. But that aside, one of the macro changes, as you said, that I see is anti-aging. That's big. Everybody's concentrating on that. We're living longer as a society, and we want to be healthier, doing better, looking better, feeling better, and be more functional. You don't want to be, an 80-year-old who's wheelchair bound. You want to be an 80-year-old who goes and sees the world and enjoys it. So, a few decades ago, saying someone would turn 80 was, oh man, they're old. Everybody else died at 70s. You know what? I remember when I thought my grandma at 60 was very old, and now 60 is like a 30 years old or 40-year-old of those eras. So I think anti-aging is big. That's the one that's going to make the big splash.
You're absolutely right there. It reminded me when I was 14 when my dad turned 50. And I remember sitting there, having it at his party thinking, wow, you're so old.
Yeah, right.
And unfortunately, I turned 50 a few years ago. So it's, it's like, no,
you're not old
is,
now. You're not that old now.
Yeah. Let's keep telling ourselves that. No, but it is actually true. It's there's a huge part of the industry. So I'm sort of keen because you're one of the top migraine specialists in the world. You've been often sort of named as the last resort, and people fly in around the world to sort of come and see you. But you've now created DefIH MedSpa. So what have you taken from that experience of running, a headache migraine specialist, and then what have you taken across and in terms of developing and creating DefIH MedSpa?
So one thing that I brought across is looking at the person as a whole. So if someone comes to me, for example, and that may sound weird, but let me explain it. So if someone comes to me and says, I want Botox for, this is a common thing, right? For these wrinkles here. I said, what do you want to achieve? Because they come for Botox, but that's not what they want. They want wrinkles gone. And if their wrinkles are deep, Botox is not going to do that, So I'll start telling them that here, these wrinkles are deep. You have to have such and such treatment. And then you have Botox as preventive. If they come for, let's say, fillers, and fillers is not a good option. I'm not going to sell them fillers. I'm going to say, oh, you balloon up. It's gonna look weird. Let's do this and this treatment. And then when I see that, okay, well, they have the air of having low hormones, for example, low testosterone, low estrogen or progesterone in case of women, then by looking at them, you can say there are signs that you can ask them the question. So I ask those questions. If they come for weight loss, I don't just sell them weight loss and tirzepatide or semaglutide. I give them also a diet plan, like a real diet plan. I don't tell them go diet and exercise. I give them a plan to follow with recipes, shopping list, everything. So they go home ready. And I check their hormones and correct those if that. Because you look at a person as a whole and you offer an overall anti-aging. And this is what I did with my migraine. That's what set me apart, because I didn't look at just symptoms. Okay, you have headache and sensitivity to light and noise and and here is some medication to take. I said, no, you have those symptoms. What is the cause of it? Let's treat the cause. And that's what I brought across. That's the main thing, I think.
No, and I remember we've had lots of conversations, and as I've sort of learned more about migraines, a few years ago in terms of how you treated it. So, no, I can actually see, I totally see where you're coming from. What was the motivation therefore then to add the MedSpa to your, migraine headache practice?
So that's a long story. I want to compact it in a few seconds. So about 15, 16 years ago, when I started my journey in innovating headache, like inventing, basically finding a headache treatment that didn't work for, so 80-85% of my patients would respond to the treatments I had. It was therapy. It was a therapy that we formed. It was not medication. But that 20% didn't respond. What do we do for them? So that's when I started my journey into different fields, and regenerative medicine was young at that age. And I stuck with it. I said, okay, this is my answer. And I learned everything there was about stem cell treatment, PRP treatment, and regenerative medicine to be able to invent the treatment that I did. And I got 3 patents on it. So learning all that, the patients would come in, and then once their headache was gone, they said, hey, doctor, I heard about vampire facial. I heard about PRP, this. So they knew cosmetic applications more than orthopedic or neurologic applications. So they would ask for that. And then afterward, I saw that, their headache is gone. They're happy because of that. Then they look better. They're happier because of that. They got their life back, and they kept asking me for it. So that was sort of my journey. That was sort of my introduction to it. Through regenerative medicine, I came to aesthetic, and because I liked the result, I liked the people being happy, because it's not often in medicine you can make people happy, right? You almost always deliver bad news, and I don't have no solution for it. So that was a big motivation, actually.
Wow. Yeah. And it kind of makes sense because, we've spoken a long time. You deal with patients that we're not talking just a headache or, a migraine that's one night and a few pills. We're talking about people that literally have migraines 80% of their day or 80% of their life.
Or pretty much some of them 100%.
100%.
Some of them 100%. They don't even leave their home. They can't do anything because of the bad migraine. Yeah, nothing's worked for them.
They're not even thinking about other treatments until, as you say, you've solved that. Then it's like, so if you were to do this again, you've this transition, what would you do differently?
I would listen to the first advice I gave when you asked me the macro changes question, that I said, watch what is going to stick and what's not going to stick, And, I'm saying that we always say hindsight is 2020. You buy that beautiful shiny machine of laser and say, okay, well, it does everything, and you do your homework and you say, I didn't think of the competition. I didn't think of, the applications. I didn't think that something better is about to come up. But how do you know that? You just have to, So again, retrospect, everything is 2020, but hindsight. But I would probably pay more attention to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that makes sense. It's just like if I want to invest $100,000 or a couple of $100,000 in a new machine, I would like do more homework. I wish they would rent those machines for a while. They would let them have it for let's say a month or two. So you see, does it give results? Do patients like it? Can you sell it? And then sell it to you. But they don't do that because they know better.
So you probably answered this question, but what advice would you give to someone that's transitioning from insurance-based medicine to starting their own cash-based practice? You made one point there already, but if someone's in that sort of, I want to go and do this, what would you say to them? What else would you say to them?
What I would say to them is like, look at your patient database. See how many patients you have. What percentage of them are women? What percentage of them are men? What age ranges? And based on those age ranges, what do they need? That's the first thing. Like, let's say the need of a 20-year-old, let's say you're a PCP, primary care physician, you have all their age ranges, right? Someone in 20s, they don't have the same aesthetic needs as someone in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So there are resources that you can find those. Then add those questions about those needs to your questionnaire. So, for example, say that, I don't know, would you be interested in weight loss? Would you be interested in, laser hair removal? Would you be interested? So some sort of add that question to the patient questionnaire, and then keep track of this and see what percentage of your patients are interested in A, B, C, D, E, F, and then move from there. That's one thing I would have done probably differently, and that was the last. I should have answered that in the last question, but here it is. So that one and this one, and budget for marketing. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's competitive. It's a marketing game. It doesn't matter if you're the best thing since sliced bread and you have the best hands in the business and best results. Marketing.
Yeah, I interviewed a top plastic surgeon probably about a year ago, and I sort of said, "What's your advice?" He said, "Take a $300,000 line of credit and just spend it all on marketing." And it's he's very successful and making good money. So something 300,000 on marketing doesn't seem huge for him, but when you're first starting, it's a big
huge
number. It's a
Yeah.
huge number, but it's the same. It's the point you're making is it is competitive, and you've got to have that in the budget.
Yeah.
And
And that
in terms,
competition is sometimes unfair as well. So, for example, nowadays anybody and everybody is opening a med spa. They probably half of them don't know what they're doing. They hire a consultant that builds it and puts the machines in, and they have the money and they want. So you're competing with people who have money, don't have the medical knowledge. So you got to set yourself apart too. So it's sort of an unfair, basically biased, tilted field. But you gotta leverage things that you have extra that are to your benefit. What sets you
yeah.
apart?
And I think that's so important. Again, I remember talking to one doctor who was looking to hire us, and I said, "What differentiates you?" No, sorry, I said, "Who's your ideal patient?" And the response was, "Anyone that will pay."
Yeah,
And 2 years later, 3 years later, whatever it was, he's no longer, in the industry. You have to be really clear. And I think your point as well, in terms of you are making that transition and you've got these patients, looking, segmenting them, understanding who they are, what they're looking for, and then starting to have that conversation. Because so easy it's to say, well, if I've got 1,000 patients, if I can take 10% of them, that's 100. If 100 of them spend this amount of money, I'm up and running. But they're not going to spend it all on day one, and and there's a lot that needs to be considered even in transitioning those.
yeah. And even
Leads
that
me to sort of
10% is difficult. Sorry to interrupt. That 10% is very difficult to convert because we think that, oh, they trust me, they know me, I give them their life back. They're my patients, they trust me, they trust the office. But then you're selling them something different. It's not that. It is easier. I'm not going to say it's harder. It's easier than finding someone off the street and buying, selling them. But it's still not that easy. It's not like, okay, 10% or 20% came over. So be ready for that. Don't set realistic goals.
yeah, and I think that's and it's probably a case of set realistic goals and then half them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so
That's a better
because
advice.
yeah, it's sort of, and I run my own business, and it's like, okay, we can do this, and it's almost happy thoughts, and
Yeah.
it's a balance. As your own business owner, you've got to be confident, you've got to believe, you've got to do this, but at the same time, cash flow is king, and if I don't hit those numbers, then what's the impact on the business? So
Yeah, correct.
yeah,
At the end of the
absolutely.
day, it's a business. I mean, business is a business. Doesn't matter what service or what product you sell. It's a business, and it's the same across the board.
So what's some of the biggest, or what's the biggest issue you see that's facing med spas at the moment? And actually, the second question to that is, and how are you working to minimize it?
Gee, that's, I would say the biggest issue is what I mentioned, standing out from the competition that's not even qualified. So, for example, part of wellness is BHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement. I do that, and I got trained on it. I went weeks of courses, not even a weekend. Like, it's not a company that comes sets me up and does it. I learned it inside out. But then there are these testosterone clinic or men's clinic or T clinics in shopping plaza, shopping strips, and they see 50 patients a day. And I searched one of them because I was looking for a machine to see who offers it in my area to buy that machine or not. And I saw that they offer it, so I said, let me see, who owns this. Is it a doctor or that? The owner of it was someone who started a Irish pub in Houston. And, I said, okay, I'm going to go to T clinics. So you see who I'm against, right? So they know the business aspects of it. So us as doctors, as physicians, we are trained to take care of patients. We don't know much about the business side of it. and we have to learn that. But yet, even when we learn that, then we're concentrated on, does the patient needs this? We got to do what you call, actually very correctly, ethical sale, moral sale, right? If you need it, I'll sell it to you. If you don't need it, I can't. But on the other side, someone who's business background, they don't know about medicine, they're trained on selling anything and everything. Whether you need it or not. They wanna, if you go to a pub, they don't want to sell you just 2 beers. They want to sell you 5 pitchers of beers, or 5 buckets of beers. Doesn't matter if you get very drunk at the end of the day. Call an Uber. So that sets us apart. That's why, like, they see 50 patients a day with testosterone, and then I have to take my time and work it out and all that. So those are the annoyance that exists around us, that people who are not qualified to do this, they own the med spas, and you have to compete with it. It's a field. You have to compete. I'm not complaining, but I'm stating the reality of it, that expect these things. Don't think just because I'm a doctor, I know what I'm doing, I can beat that estheticians that open the med spa. No. If they're better at that business, they're better at that business. They may not be better at that art, but they're better at the business and they can beat you. So, check your boxes, do your homework, learn your business, and then launch in. Business is extremely important.
No, you're making some really good points there, because, for the average patient, if they haven't done their research, and again, it comes back to the marketing. If a company is offering it, there's a belief that they can offer it, they can do it. Otherwise they wouldn't be allowed to operate it. And as you know, we run a contact center for practices. So, we get a lot of questions, a lot of conversations going on every day. And we all experience the price shopper. But, I often think about the price shopper, in their mind, it's literally the differentiator is the price. Maybe that's all they can afford, but at the end of the day, they have a belief that the level of service they're going to get from these various practices is equal, which is why price then becomes the differentiator. So again, there's so many factors here to consider as we go through this journey.
Right. No, absolutely. And price, I'm glad you brought that. That's another thing. There are so many things you can't wrap your brain around everything, but price is important. And it's very easy to get caught in that and say that, okay, I'm going to compete. And if they give Botox for, I don't know, $10, I'm going to give it for $8. Then what are you going to do when they give it for $5? And because they may source it from places that you can't source as a doctor. Like, I know Botox comes from China and India, and they're not really Botox, and they get it cheap. But I can't do that, because I know the drug too well, and it's like you can get into trouble. Forget the morality of it, one part, but you can legally get into trouble because you have a license. They don't have a medical license. So don't get into that game of price beating or competition. You sell a service. I sell result, and you want it cheaper, go someplace cheaper. I make sure things that I get are high quality. The equipment, the medication, the machines, everything is high quality, and it delivers the result. You want result? Come to me. You want price? Good luck. Find someone else.
Yeah. Again, it's knowing your brand. It's knowing, what are the boundaries in which you're setting up your practice and your business to work within. So
absolutely. Yes.
Now, me, I always like to talk about sales. That's my background. So,
well, salesMD after all.
salesMD, exactly. Thank you. Yes. But it's there's always this dichotomy between sort of medicine, and it is a cash-based business, and we need to sell. And as you said, I call it ethical sales. In my mind, medicine comes first, but if they're an ideal candidate for a treatment and they're going to get the results, then it's a sales process, whether we want to recognize it or not. It's there. So how do you incorporate sales as a doctor, but also across your practice with your team?
So I always even before being a doctor, when I was doing odd jobs, when I was student, resident, whatever. So I could sell things that I believe in. So if I can use this, I can sell it. But if I have no use for this and I don't know this, I can't sell it. There are some people that say, there's an expression in the US, they say, he can sell a pencil to a tree. I can't do that. I got to make sure that this is the right thing. So that's how I am. It's like I believe in this. I use it myself. I would use it on my family, on my mom, dad, aunts and uncles, family, and then I can sell it because I believe in it. So that's my method. And with that, again, I sell the result, because if the patient comes in for taking care of these wrinkles, but he wants Botox or she wants Botox, and Botox is not the answer, then I can convince them that's not the answer because I believe in it. I know it. I'm not just trying to up the price. Oh.
Yeah. And then when you look at the team, what would you say they struggle with? Because again, the beauty in a way of a medical practice is everyone is involved with dealing with patients, from the front desk, the MAs, the nurses, the providers, yourself, everyone. So it's a team sell. So what would you say the team, how do they handle sales? And, if anything, what do they struggle with?
I think, so the first thing that comes into my mind is closing. So the person may be convinced. You tell them everything, and they know that this is the right treatment, and they want to do it, and yet when they go to the front desk or talk with the treatment coordinator, says like, let me talk to my husband, or let me think about this, and then that's probably gone, not because they don't believe or trust in us, because they go and say, do I really want to spend that much money? That was not my budget. Maybe, I should. Whereas, so the closing, so that's the biggest part. And
Yeah. And I've
that's
always, no, that's good. And I think, I've been a trainer sales trainer for 20 plus years, and closing is always the piece that's the hardest because there is a sort of, that's the moment you expose yourself as such, you have that opportunity of a rejection. And as humans, we don't want to be rejected. So sometimes it's easier not to be asking, because then you can't get rejected. So there's a lot of psychology in it for both the seller in that process. But the other piece I always say is it's the questioning techniques earlier on in the process. The more we can ask, meaningful, impactful questions, actually assists the closing technique at the end of the day. So again, if we're not always closing, it's sometimes worth looking at, are we asking all the questions in the process? So
that's a good advice. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, it's now time for the question we always end the show with. I say that because this is the first one, so I lied slightly. It's going to be the question we always end the show with. So,
Hey.
If you could send yourself one message before you started your business journey, what would you say?
That's a very interesting question. Loaded question. I would tell myself a lot of things, but but one thing I would say that before you commit to anything, what I said earlier as advice is like, ask your patients, give that questionnaire, what do they want? Then you're not going by what everybody's telling you, the salespeople or the industry is telling you, because every demographic is different. You're asking your audience, like my patients, do they like this or not? And that would give me a much better idea than and that would even take so much doubt out of your funnel campaigns, your email campaigns and stuff like that, to convert them. So yeah, that's what I would do differently. I would take my time. do that for at least 2-3 months, if not more, and then decide what I want to do.
I love
You
that.
know?
I love that. Yeah, I think know your customer, know what
Yeah,
their problem is, what they're going to spend their money on. um,
yeah.
yeah, I think
So,
that's fantastic.
I'm gonna quote Benny Hill on this, and it's a little bit over eight. It's not so over 18. Let's say PG-14 or so. So in one episode, Benny Hill from your neck of wood said, "Do not assume." In one of his shows, wrote it on. He was a teacher or professor, because when you do, you make an ass out of you and me, ass
Yes,
you me. So we should not assume. Just ask the
yes.
question.
No, I think that's really, yeah, really good advice. And and that's when it goes wrong. When we make that assumption, it's when it goes wrong. So,
Yeah, right.
Dr. Sadeghi, thank you so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and it's been great, as I knew it would be. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us today on the Aesthetic Business Success Show, brought to you by salesMD. So if people want to get a hold of you, Dr. Sadeghi, what's the best way of making contact?
The best way, there are several. They can go to my website for headache is nationalheadacheinstitute.com. That's the easiest. Phone number is 713-467-4082. And the MedSpa is defiagemedspa.com. And Defiage is Defiage. Lots of people pronounce it defiage, French. I think that's like, as I said, je ne sais quoi to it, right?
Yes, defy age. So defy age, or well, how would you say it? I was going to say it, but
Defiage. Defiage.
defiage.
That's the French part of it. Like, ooh, French. Oh la la.
Perfect. So defy age med spa, and both are in Houston. So if
Yeah,
you need to put a
Virgin
town
Houston.
in to lock it down a little bit. So excellent. So yeah, great
Well,
speaking,
thank you for
and
having me. This was fun. Thank you.
good. Thank you for joining us.